What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Now, I wanted to make a video that's a little bit more evergreen that could be applicable all throughout 2024, giving you a little bit of information and a resource or tool to be able to decide which exchange might be the best for you. Now, there are a bunch out there, but two of the biggest ones right now are Bitget and Binance. And I know as the bull market really kicks off and really, people start to enter into the space, they're going to try to decide which one is best for them. And so I hope this video does work for you. Now, what I'm going to do is give a couple comparisons on things that I find important, and then I'm going to tell you which one I personally do prefer and which one I think is better depending on where you are at your stage or whatever stage you may be in your investing or trading journey. So first and foremost, let's talk about just the very, very front end. What is Bitget and what is Binance? Now, Bitget and Binance are both two exchanges in which you can consider one-stop shops if you are looking to do any trading or investing into the world of crypto. Of course, you can do spot trading, you can do futures and margins trading, and you can do just about anything that you can think of when it comes to buying or selling crypto, or just maybe transferring or just withdrawing, etc. Now, they both can be also used as onboarding ramps if you want to go from fiat into the world of crypto, which also is important because it does kind of help their user base stay on platform. Now, they do a lot more and they do provide a lot more options than just trading on spot or margin, but we will dive a little bit deeper into their individual options later in the video. I just wanted to give you an idea of what each one of these exchanges is. Now, let's talk a little bit about what is the absolute most important, because if this doesn't happen or if this isn't there, none of the other stuff matters, and that is the overall safety of each exchange. Now, what we can see is that in terms of safety, there are two key things, in my opinion, that you need to be on the lookout for. How are they storing user funds, one, and what type of walls of protection do they have for their users? Now, both of them actually have very similar levels of protection. What you can see here is that in the proof of reserves, which I recommend if you are using an exchange, they must have a proof of reserves, because this shows that they're not just using your funds willy-nilly doing weird shit like FTX was, right? They're actually using your funds and storing them and not doing anything with them. That's what you need to see. What you can see here is that their latest reserve ratio is 171%. What this means is there's a 171% of what they're holding to what their users have deposited, meaning they are holding more for their users than their users have even deposited, which is great. There's no such thing as a bank run if they have a high reserve ratio. What you can see here is for Bitcoin, 381%, USDT 102%, ETH 151%, and then USDC 587%, which is absolutely amazing. Now, not only that though, as I mentioned before, they're putting up these walls of protection, and the way in which they're doing this is by creating the Bitget Protection Fund, in which they regularly monitor the Bitget Protection Fund and the industry cybersecurity landscape to make sure that the fund remains adequate to protect Bitget users. And currently the fund is valued at $390 million, in which you can see the wallets in which it's stored. Now, to kind of put that into comparison to what Binance is doing, their, of course, Seifu Fund, which is a very similar protection fund, is at around $1 billion a year ago. Where it's at now, they haven't released the exact number recently, but I would imagine it's still pretty high. But obviously with Binance, there have been some weird little security things in terms of audits and reports and stuff like that, so that is something to think about. Now, in terms of their own proof of reserves, their actual ratios are pretty good themselves. 104% for Bitcoin, 106% for ETH, 109% at BNB, 120% or 119% for USDT, 127% for BUSD, 105% for USDC, 101% for LTC, and 104% for XRP. These are the mainstays. Now, they do have more. Obviously, we're not going to keep reading off all of these percentages, but what you can see is that they are all over 100%. So what you can see is that although they are good and their ratios are good, I do believe that Bitget just holds a better ratio, as you can see, with an average 171%. And so in my opinion, I would lean a little bit closer towards Bitget. Although their protection fund is probably smaller, their ratios are better, and I do personally prefer that. Now that we have kind of got that out the way, as I mentioned before, if that wasn't good, if that didn't look good, there's no other point. If you can't see proof of reserves, I wouldn't use them. If you can't actually see what type of protections and securities they're putting up for their users, I wouldn't use them. But now that we got that out the way, let's talk a little bit about the overall reach, their networking, the platforms itself, because we know that they are safe as much as we possibly can know. So going forward, of course, let's talk a little bit about the front end. We'll go from front end and we'll go to back end. So from a front end perspective, I would say Bitget and Binance are on very similar levels in terms of what they're capable of accomplishing from a networking or marketing perspective. They both have a ton of money. They both have huge networks. One key sign that they both have huge networks is what they are doing in terms of their partnerships. We can see here that Bitget actually signed on Lionel Messi, which is probably, if not the best football player on earth, right? Maybe even ever. And then in comparison, Binance actually signed Cristiano Ronaldo, which some people would have to argue and say that he's better. You can say what you want. I don't even watch soccer, as we call it here. But at the end of the day, I know this is an ongoing battle between Messi and Ronaldo. And so the fact that it's now Bitget versus Binance is hilarious. They're kind of playing into that argument as well. But it is good marketing, at least in my opinion. They're kind of picking their sides, some would say. But at the end of the day, whether you like either one or whatever, at the end of the day, what we have to understand is getting a hold of a Ronaldo or getting a hold of a Messi, not easy to do. Takes a lot of money, a lot of patience, and a lot of networking. And the fact that they were both able to accomplish this just goes to show that from a networking and marketing perspective, they are both capable of accomplishing probably just about anything. So kind of going a little bit further from just the front end now, let's go towards the middle end, kind of like a more reputational side of things before we actually talk about the back end. I would say that Bitget probably has a bit of a better reputation at this point, and it is a part of the reason why I personally do prefer Bitget. The reason being is because we have seen those hiccups with Binance, right? From a regulatory perspective and from just a platform perspective. We've seen hacks, we've seen problems, we've seen things of this nature that have cost people money and cost people a lot of time, which to some degree does kind of put a stain on the reputation. But one thing to consider is, although that's not necessarily happened with Bitget, Binance has been around longer. And so the question then becomes, can Bitget learn from those mistakes and then use those mistakes to grow? Does that necessarily make Bitget better than Binance because they learned from their mistakes? Not necessarily. It just means that they have a better reputation, or at least in my opinion. Now, obviously, the whole CZ situation, that is a whole separate story, but that does play into the reputation as well because people get a little nervous about what the future of Binance could look like as they do continue to deal with legislation and regulatory drama. Now, moving a little bit further towards the back end, let's actually talk about interfaces themselves. Now, personally speaking, I do highly prefer Bitget's interface, especially if I am doing trading or anything basic like that, because it is just a little bit more highly effective and efficient in my opinion. What you can see here is everything that you need is kind of integrated in with TradingView, so you can add in all your indicators, you can add in different alerts, you can do everything that you can think of from a trading or charting perspective, which then allows you to trade. Now, not only do they give you the charts, but they do give you an active order book, which I do prefer, in which you can see that you're saying, okay, where do we have bullish liquidity? Where do we have bearish liquidity? Where can we expect price movement at? Where can we expect volume at? Things of that nature. You can also execute your trades here. Their leverage is very, very easy to use. You can choose isolated, you can choose cross. That then allows you to then go forward with your trades based off of what you're seeing just here or just from the order book. And the fact that you don't have to go through hoops and bounds to be able to actually execute those trades, you can do it in one little place. In my opinion, way better, way more efficient. Now, once you actually execute on those trades, what you can see is you can keep an eye on how your trades are doing. This is similar to how Binance is, but at least in my opinion, it all is in one place. And it kind of just looks better in my opinion, especially, I'm a dark mode guy, but they both have dark mode, but you get the point, okay? And I'm not going to go as far to say that, like Binance just doesn't have the options or it doesn't look good or it's not easily usable, but just kind of looking at this versus looking at how Bitget has their setup, this one is just more efficient in my opinion. And I, again, just do prefer it, but of course, to each their own. Now, moving just a little bit further, let's actually talk about real behind the scenes, like back end, the fees, the usage, things of that nature. Well, what we can see here is that in terms of fees, we do have a winner in Bitget. Bitget having a maker fee of 0.04% compared to the 0.1% for Binance, and then a taker fee of 0.06% for Bitget compared to the 0.1% for Binance as well. So a pretty big difference, and these are pretty substantially cheaper than what we would see on something like Binance, and that is more user-friendly because you're spending less money per trade, which obviously can increase your ROI over time. Now, in terms of usage, security, and compliance and things of that nature, I do agree with Economy that it is about a tie. Of course, two-factor authentication, cold storage, security fund, address whitelisting, anti-phishing, real-time risk management, asset segregation, secure infrastructure. They both have all of that. And so in my opinion, from terms of a security, compliance, and usage perspective, they are rather similar. So what you can kind of see here, and I think the point that I'm getting to at this point, that it is more of a personal preference type of thing, but I do personally prefer Bitget because, again, I think the trading experience is a little bit easier and better, and the fees to actually use it to make your trades, especially as a beginner, are much less. And so because of that, it will have to take the cake, at least in my opinion. But it will be interesting going forward to see how they both continue to develop and what different things get added to each one of the platforms. Because right now, something like Binance does have more offerings, right? You can see that Binance has something like Binance NFT, which is a complete NFT space on the exchange itself, something that Bitget doesn't have. But then if you go over to Bitget, for example, you can do a ton of copy trading, something that Binance doesn't include right now. And so with that in mind, again, it will be interesting to see how they continue to develop which platform probably takes the cake towards the end of the next bull run. I do have a feeling Bitget's definitely going to catch up, and I could imagine them even maybe surpassing them, but it will just come with time and we will have to see. But I hope you enjoyed today's comparison. Let me know if it was valuable. Did you enjoy it? Was it something that you can use going forward, and did it help you make a good decision? I would appreciate it if you let me know down in the comments below, and if you want more kind of evergreen content like this, of course, let me know down there as well. But with that in mind, I hope you have an absolutely amazing new year. Stop hating on the holiday road, and I will see you all soon. Peace out, everybody.